So my kids started playing basketball this week, and we're in the last week of football. Or I guess football playoffs start on Saturday. But we had basketball practice last night after football practice, so Tuesdays and Thursdays are just crazy. We went to a school yesterday, and they've got two campuses, like an elementary and a high school, or something of that nature. The campuses are called Aristotle and Plato.
Okay.
And that was my first, that's like where we practice. And that was my first sort of hesitation, is like, what kind of school is this? And so, you know how schools have stuff labeled in them, like gymnasium, cafeteria, library?
Uh-huh.
We walk into the basketball gym, and I kid you not, the little placard outside of it, it says Circus Maximus. What the fuck kind of school? I don't know if it's a charter school or a private school. I don't know what the difference is, but what the fuck? Circus Maximus.
They seem to be very impressed with themselves.
Well, I told Amy, I said, should we send our kids here? Because I asked her about it, and she said they teach a bunch of like classics and stuff like that to the kids. And so I think they get an early education on being able to read and do humanities and stuff very well. I said, should we send our kids here? And she said, no, the kids that I know that have gone there are weirdos. As always, I'm Sane. I've got Steve here with me.
What's up, guys?
I know we took last week off. We had some schedule conflicts, but we are back this week and ready to rock and roll. So let's get into it. Steve, what do you got for me?
I heard through a little birdie that you were on a particular radio station here in Dallas the other day with our friends, the Musers. So tell us a little bit about that.
Can you believe that?
It was weird. It was surreal.
So it's one of the producers. So Steve's talking about the ticket. We released an episode last week of me on with the Musers there in DFW, which has been Steve and I's favorite radio station in Dallas for me about 15 or 16 years. I know, Steve, you've been a P1 for about damn near 30 years, right?
30 years, absolutely 30 years. And that was the strange part for me, is these guys I've been listening to for 30 years, and suddenly you hear your friend's voice on there interacting with him. It was odd. Yeah,
so one of the producers every week on Twitter, he always puts out something to email him if you want to do picks against the P1s. He asks you to sort of give a little background about yourself as to why you'd be a decent picker for the P1s. And P1s are the listeners for the station, if you don't know. So I emailed him, and I looked back, and I had emailed him like 15 times since the start of football season. And I finally emailed him and said, I don't know if I'm just pestering you, or if I need to stop emailing you, or, what the situation is. So I feel bad emailing you all the time, but, let me know if I should still email you. And so he emails me on like Wednesday of last week. And it's like, hey, if you want to do the show, can I call you tomorrow? Which was Thursday. And so they do like a little pre-call just with the producer, just to make sure that you're not, going to be wheels off or some kind of weirdo who can't talk on the radio. So I guess I passed. It's like a minute and a half phone call. So I guess I passed that test. And then I got to go on the Musers and make the picks. And I will say,
I don't think you mentioned that. That particular segment is one that aligns with your interest, whereas it's a gambling segment, and they get a P1 on each week to make picks against the two hosts there. And it's called Picks with the P1s.
Yeah, so you pick 5 high school games, 5 college games, and 5 NFL games. And I'll be honest with you, and I think even the Musers mentioned it too, when we're going through the high school slate, I didn't know half the high schools they even mentioned. We did a 6-man game. I never heard of the Crest Kangaroos or the Happy Cowboys before. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think
there was
one
a
of
private school in there.
Yeah, it was Parish Episcopal against Liberty Christian in Argyle. So I will say I'm happy to report that after all the games were over, I'm not going to talk about the high school. I went 2-3 I think they went 5-0 and 4-1. But in college and the NFL, I went 8-2, and they both went 5-5.
Yeah, they're not bringing you back just out of pure embarrassment.
I mean, I'd put it to them. It was awesome. No, it was fun though. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So I get a text from my dad because I didn't tell a lot of people about it. And I got a text from my dad who a friend sent him a message, said, "Hey," and it was very obvious that if you know me at all, when they started to introduce me, it wasn't like this could be this person or it might be. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was very clear that it was me. And so he texted my dad and said, "Hey, your kid's on the ticket right now talking to the musers." And so
he flipped over? Did he flip over and get to listen to some of it?
No, my dad isn't a P1. He's not a talk radio guy, but I was able to send him and my mom the audio, and they got to hear it, which was fun. And
he's more of an AM talk radio guy.
No,
you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, but no, he's just not a. He's not a guy who listens to that stuff, which is kind of weird because he's a big sports guy. That's sort of what he does. I mean, and again, Ticket isn't really it's a sports station, but it's not really a sports station as we know.
Right.
But he would love it, but he just never got into it. So he doesn't listen, but they got to hear it, and it was a really cool time. It was fun. And then later that night, I got a text from a friend, and all it said was, "You're famous." And I was like, man, people were listening to me. Kind of cool.
Yeah, and you did, I don't want to compliment you too much because, your ego's so out of control already after the show, but you did pretty well on there. You sounded good. You sounded... I did hear a bit of shake voice at one point. I could tell you were a little bit nervous, but overall, you held your own on there. You made them laugh a few times. Pretty cool.
Well, I messed up the word analyst at the very beginning.
Yes. You didn't say analyst, thankfully.
Yeah, I should have. But I mean, it's guys I've been listening to for 20 years, Yeah. It's just, and they're like your heroes on the radio. So it definitely a little bit of shake voice and like, is this actually happening? And they don't give you the slate before you pick either. Yeah, so you have no idea going in. So you try and you go over the big college and the big NFL games just so you have some sort of background as to what games they might pick. But again, for the high school, I have no idea. But I got them with it always to be just Fields line. I think they like that one pretty good.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But yeah, let's start like we usually do and jump into college. I know UT and Georgia had a big game on Saturday. I was talking to you on Sunday about it. I think we both believe that Quinn Ewers is the guy. He's the quarterback, and he could be probably the rest of the year. But are they missing something by not going to Arch? Does he provide a bit more, like maybe mobility or anything, or is Quinn does he need to be the guy the rest of the year?
Yeah, I know the mobility point has been raised this week, obviously, because Georgia was absolutely destroying the UT offensive line, which is pretty crazy because there's like 3 NFL players there. But that's not the norm, so this has been a really good offensive line. They've particularly been great in pass protection. So I'm not sure that's so much a selling point for Arch, but I will say it has definitely gotten to the point to where this is a big game coming up for Quinn. He's gotta play well. He is in danger of losing his job, which is crazy. Being that the guy was a top 10 pick, not too long ago, but. We'll see. I still think Quinn is the guy to take Texas to where they need to go, but it's definitely not as clear as it was not too long ago.
And they've got Vanderbilt this weekend, which Vanderbilt has definitely been playing tough this year. I don't think they'll have a problem with them. It's still Vanderbilt, even though they beat Alabama this year. What is Alabama? But then it's Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky. That could be a game, but it's at home. And then I think, honestly, the only real test you guys should have left is against A&M, the last game of the season. And, I mean, there's really no chance you guys miss the playoff this year. So
no, I don't think so.
You can't switch to Arch I don't think, because again, the schedule just. I mean, I think you've played the toughest teams on your schedule so far. I think
there's a trip to Arkansas. There's a road game at Arkansas that's pretty tricky. You know, they hate us, and they've played some good teams tough this year, so that's it. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, really, this is a put up or shut up week for yours this weekend, so we'll see. I mean, he's going to get the start, and he's the man still, and we'll see if he can hold on to the job. The more interesting part from that game, and I don't know how closely you watched, but did you see the overturned pass interference call in the third quarter?
I think it's going to set a bad precedent.
Yes.
I think
it's bizarre. It's unprecedented.
The call was wrong. They should never have called pass interference.
Right.
You can't overturn that based on looking at the Jumbotron. And then you can't overturn it because people are throwing shit on the field.
Yeah. They called the penalty on the field. The ref got on the mic, called the penalty. They spotted the ball. They started the clock. And that's when the fans started throwing shit on the field. The embarrassment of our fans throwing shit on the field. There's no rule for this. This is unprecedented. The SEC has been silent about it. No one wants this to happen to their team. It's one of the craziest referee decisions I've ever seen in my life.
And again, I'm objective when it comes to UT, so I really don't care.
Me too.
I just want to watch good games. So if there's two top 5 teams playing each other, it's going to be on the TV. But I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the penalty. And 2, I couldn't believe they overturned it.
I couldn't believe it.
It's, oh man.
The rules are not written that way. There's no, like I said, there's no precedent for it. So there's no reason for them to do what they did. It was, you got to have some basic rules going into a game that everyone's can rely on. So the fact that the SEC hasn't at least come out, their only response is our guys made a bad decision there. It shouldn't have happened, but they're not saying anything, and it's really weird.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think pass interference is a play that can be reviewed anyway. So I don't think you're able to throw like the challenge flag without all the trash being thrown. Forget all that piece. But I don't think you can actually challenge pass interference. So to overturn it's wild.
Wild. Wouldn't have happened if the Texas fans hadn't thrown shit on the field.
And I really thought the game was going to turn right there. So again, let's step back and take away all the trash throwing, and let's just say it was never called a penalty, and like just the play itself with the interception. I really thought that was going to turn the game around. And
it kind of did for a bit.
It kind of did, and then it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Texas got within 7 points there. They turned that into a touchdown. They got within 7. Georgia drove 89 yards down the field, scored a touchdown, and that was pretty much it. But yeah, it turned a game that probably shouldn't have been that close into a close game. I mean, Texas was within 7 late in the third quarter there.
Yeah, it was still a fun game. I mean, I watched it. I think I probably fell asleep.
Was it?
In the fourth quarter. Yeah. I mean, watching two good teams. I mean, I know it was 30 to 15, I think was the end, but it's still a good game. And we've got a bunch of good games on the slate this weekend too. It's college football is always fun. Again, I'm an NFL guy, but from an entertainment perspective, college football just has everything.
Dude, the pomp and circumstances, the close games, the upsets, it's badass this year. And it's even better with these large conferences because we have so many better games than we used to. You know, we have Oregon and Ohio State playing last week and things like that you never would have seen. You had Texas, Georgia playing this week. There's just so many more good games. Hey, since we didn't get to talk last week, I did want to bring this up from the previous week's games. Did you see what Dan Lanning did, the Oregon head coach? What he did in the Ohio State game?
The 12 guys on the field?
Yeah, purposely putting 12 guys on the field.
Genius.
Late in the game, the only thing that matters at that point is clock. Ohio State's trying to drive down to win or tie the game. So, putting 12 guys out, and that they ran the play, and 5 seconds run off the clock. Oregon knows it's going to get the penalty, but the most important thing there is they took it to 12 seconds to 7 seconds. It's genius, and it's a loophole in the rules, and they fixed it now. I thought that was pretty damn clever.
I mean, that's a Bill Belichick move back in the day. Because he used to do shit like that on special teams. I think he used to do all kinds of crazy shit because it wasn't against the rules. And he knew he was going to get a penalty. But at the same time, if they didn't take those, he said, 5 seconds or 7 seconds off the clock?
Yeah, I think it was 5,
If they don't take that off and the quarterback slides there, they're able to probably snap it, spike it, and get one play off.
So they had in their meetings at some point over the summer or whenever, they had discussed this particular situation, and it popped up in a game, and they used it to basically, like you said, win the game. Or Ohio State probably would have kicked to win that game if not for that. People call it cheating, whatever. No, it's within the rules.
It's just like the tax code. I mean, you're not cheating if you're using like the tax loopholes. They're there for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. I don't like how fast they can change the rules, just because, again, like with the NFL, like they're not going to change anything during the season. It's got to go to the committee, and all the owners have to vote on it. It's got to have like 2/3 approval or whatever it is for a certain thing. So I don't like how fast they can change the rule. I'm glad that they did change it, because it is kind of bullshit. I mean, because you don't want to be the team that has it happen against you and then you're complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time,
if it's there,
do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's genius.
It was genius. Sticking with college football, I'm going to run down the last undefeated teams in college football. You tell me who's legit and who's not legit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go in order of their current AP poll rank. You ready?
Yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah, probably legit.
Penn State.
They got to show something before anybody believes anything, right? Every year, they're a really good team, and then they get beat by Ohio State and Michigan. They're going to beat Michigan this year, but we'll see,
Playoff team? I say yes.
Yeah, I think so. Just because, again, they're going to beat Michigan.
Right.
Unless they lose to Indiana.
Well, we're going to get to them in a second, because I've got something on them too, which is crazy. Miami?
I don't get why people are so down on them. I guess they haven't played anybody, or they've been playing people close. But I say if you're undefeated and you have Cam Ward as your quarterback, then you're legit.
I think they are. And I saw something earlier this week, and I'm not going to remember it exactly, but the ACC right now is super crazy. Pulling up the ACC real quick, because I want to talk about this for a second. You've got SMU, Miami, and Clemson, right? They don't play each other this year, I think. I don't think any of those three play each other.
They don't.
And they could all go undefeated in the ACC this year.
Yeah.
And then what do you do?
There's a few scenarios like that.
It's wild. Another team undefeated in the ACC right now, overall, not even just in the ACC, is Pittsburgh. They do play SMU and Clemson. There's going to be some losses for one of those three teams either way. But those other three, SMU, Clemson, and Miami, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And we've talked about SMU, I think, every week on the pod so far. I'm so impressed with them. I think it's just a fun story.
Yeah, that quarterback they have, I'd talked about him previously. Apparently he is the dude. I haven't seen them play this year, unfortunately. I really want to watch them sometimes.
I've only seen a little bit, but it always, whenever I turn it on, it's like 40-0, and so I tune out pretty quick.
Right.
All right, so we did Miami. We think they're legit. Cam Ward is I mean, he's probably he's probably a finalist right now for the Heisman, which I want to talk about in a second also. Next is Iowa State, Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Legit
Absolutely
or not?
Legit defense. They don't have the offense to do much in the playoffs, but I think they'll probably be there.
BYU?
They keep somehow winning. They're not good. They're undefeated. I mean, you got to give them something, but they're not that good.
Indiana, which we mentioned a little bit ago.
Man,
what is Indiana doing right now?
Dude, they're putting up like 40-something points a game.
They have the best offense points per game in the country. It's just over 48 points a game.
I love it when teams like this, the non-historically great college teams, jump up. And that's a badass story. It really is. And they're legit, man. They're going to beat the doors off Michigan. And
I love the non-historically great teams that also have no hype before
Yeah.
the season starts. And then, I mean, this is the first time Indiana's been 7-0 since like the 40s or 50s or something. Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, they were picked. They were bottom third in the Big Ten in the rankings to start the season. So
And they're going to
that
be
coach is about to get paid, and they've got transfers at all the big quarterback, running back, wide receiver who have come in, and it's going to be fun, man. I don't know if they play Ohio State in the regular season, but that's going to be a fun. I'm rooting for them.
I am too. I just like those stories where they come out of nowhere, and I think the quarterback is absolutely legit, and it's just fun to see. And then, so I've mentioned it before, but my buddy who's a Nebraska guy, he was watching the game, and he's got a truck. I needed his truck on Saturday. I had to go pick up a piece of furniture that my wife had bought. I was like, hey, I need, there's like a 2-hour window where I can grab this thing. Can I borrow your truck, or can you help me get it? And after the first half of the Indiana game, he texted me and said, yeah, I'm good. We're not going to meet you. he was done watching.
Nebraska was a team that was kind of up and coming, and maybe they still are, but Indiana just spanked them, dude. I can't wait for them to play a bigger school.
So, yeah, they got Washington, and that's where game day is this week on ESPN.
Oh, that'll be a good matchup.
Yeah, I know, they can't just keep going back to SEC schools every week because, this week, obviously, it would be A&M and who are they playing?
LSU.
So that would be the game, but they're going to Washington, Indiana, just because it's a fun story, and because, again, they can't just stay in the SEC because people get mad. But, yeah, they play Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio, and they do play Ohio State at Ohio State, so that probably trips them up. But then they play Purdue the last game of the season. So I think Indiana loses one game this year, maybe to Ohio State. I think other than that, they run the table. You talk about an 11-1 Big Ten team.
Jeez.
It's probably in the playoffs.
What are the odds of those guys making the playoffs before the season started? It had to be off the freaking charts.
Less than 1%, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Next undefeated is Pittsburgh.
Yeah. It's, again, a cool story, but, they're going to run into a wall.
Yeah, they will. And then these next two, I'm interested in your thoughts. Yeah. Army and Navy.
So neither probably has a chance to make the playoffs unless they both play Notre Dame this year. Correct. They've got to pull that win off. Yep.
If one of them beats Notre Dame, they go undefeated and they're making the playoff.
Yeah. They would probably play each other in the conference championship game, so they would still have that hurdle. But I think Army has the better shot from under everything I understand. So, yeah, that's their season. And I don't know. Does Army still run like a wing tee sort of thing where they just run the clock? I don't know. I know Air Force throws the ball, but...
No, yeah, Army is ridiculous. They have a quarterback. His name is Daly, I think. And so I'm pulling up their stats from the last game. So his name is Daly
Johnson. So,
right? No, B Daly.
No.
Right? Did I miss a joke there?
John Daly.
Oh, jackass. They played Eastern Carolina, who I think actually after the game was over fired their coach. Well, he's the quarterback. He threw 10 passes last week for one touchdown. He ran the ball as the quarterback 31 times for 171 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Hell yeah. Dude, I'm so in for that Notre Dame game.
Army and Navy are wagon this year.
Yeah, I love those teams. I love the Vanderbilt and the App State that can just grind you down, and boy, I hope they do that to the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, and they played UAB. He threw the ball 7 times, rushed it 12 times for 170 yards. What the hell? Yeah. He threw the ball 5 times against Tulsa. He threw it 5 times and ran it 13 times for 110 yards.
Jeez.
He's just a running back who happens to line up under quarterback, but No,
Yeah.
I think they're both. It's fun, but have you heard this scenario? Army, Navy, they've historically always played that last week of the season, so they do all the Heisman stuff, and then they do. What is it? It's all the conference games,
Conference championships,
and then the next week
playoffs
is
will
Army,
be
Navy.
dead at that point.
Yeah, and then they do the Army Navy game the next week, which is the Heisman ceremony, I think, too.
Right.
They're gonna set the playoff this year. So Army and Navy, let's say they both beat Notre Dame. Probably won't happen, but definitely could. But they both beat Notre Dame. They're both undefeated. They're gonna set the playoff before they play the last game of the season against each other.
Wow. And the thought process there is these teams are never going to be in the playoffs, so it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Yes. That's crazy.
That's going to be awesome.
You couldn't pick either one of them in that scenario. I don't think you certainly couldn't pick one over the other. They're not both going.
Yeah. Again, one of them, if not both, are probably going to lose Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Just because it's a different animal. And Notre Dame isn't great this year, but they're fine. And they just have better athletes across the board just because it's Notre Dame. It's like a, UT or Ohio State. They just have the better athletes. But if they both beat Notre Dame and they're both undefeated, it's going to be absolute chaos.
Oh, that is chaos. Yeah, Notre Dame will be like, probably 17-point favorite, 21-point favorite over both.
Yeah, I want to say this week for the game, it's like Notre Dame opened up, I think, pretty big against. So Notre Dame right now is a 13-point favorite against Navy for this weekend. So
that's this weekend.
That's this weekend, yeah.
All right, hell yeah.
So we'll see what happens, and then, but the last undefeated team is Liberty. I'm not going to spend much time on Liberty. They suck.
I was just driving home from a bar a little while ago.
They were losing, weren't they?
I had some beers and they were losing. Yeah. I heard they were down to Kennesaw State, which is the newest Division I or whatever they call it these days. It's the newest Division I team.
Oh, no, they're losing 27-17 with a minute and a half to go in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
Right, so
good.
We will spend no more time on Liberty. Fuck Liberty. That fucking
Liberty.
school. What'd the president do? What's his deal?
He was watching his wife bang the pool boy while he was sitting in the corner and monkeying with his junk.
Okay.
Which, who hasn't been there, right?
Me. I'll raise my hand and say me.
But yeah, they ran him out of the university. But there's all kind of weird shit there, right? They're harsh on those students, and it's such a fucking con. And fuck Liberty.
Fuck Liberty. Bob Sturm tried to walk on to play basketball there.
Mm-hmm. And then he realized that he, as a uncoordinated 6'8" white guy, his college career wasn't ever going to happen. You
realize you go to high school with like 100 kids, and they're all white.
Yeah.
And you just happen to be tall.
And the other schools around are all white. And then he gets to college. Like, maybe this isn't for me.
So yeah, there's the college wrap up. It's just fun. I always love it. The 12-game playoff is the 12-team playoff is gonna be a lot of fun, and we'll get into that more, in the coming weeks. But I think it's like the first week of November, I think, is when they release the first college football playoff selection committee, whatever the fuck they call it now.
Right. I don't know what you call it either, but yeah. And then that last month of the season, they say right now there are basically 30 teams in play for those 12 spots. So, man, that is a lot of games that are interesting and mean something. And when people say the college football playoffs destroyed the regular season, it's just the complete opposite, because there's going to be so many meaningful games each week. Whereas normally at that point, you have a few teams trying to get into the conference championship games. But it's going to add so much. It's going to be badass.
I mean, did I used to appreciate the fact that you couldn't lose a game, or at most maybe you could lose one game and only make the playoff with 4 teams, or the BCS Bowl or BCS game or whatever. Yeah, that was kind of fun. But at the same time, it's nice to know that now there's a little bit of a margin of error in your seasons. Like UT, for example, if this was 15 years ago, you'd be upset and season's over. You can't go anywhere else. You're going to play in the Fiesta Bowl or something, but that's your ceiling. Now it's like, no, we're still going to be in the playoff and we're still going to do something and have a chance to win a national championship this year. So I think people always say, this hurts the regular season. Well, you know what? The regular season in a lot of sports doesn't fucking matter. It's all about if you get to the playoff. That's when it matters. Can you show up?
You're right. It matters late when you're fighting for a playoff spot, and that's how that's going to be. And in the old system, you'd have a great team who lost their quarterback for a game and lost their game, and then won all the others, and they're fucked because of that. I don't understand the obsession with, the only undefeated team should get in. I really don't. It's such a small trade-off for what we're going to see late in the season in the playoffs.
Yeah, there's just different tiers of conferences and teams and stuff, too. So I think it's great. And then speaking of real football, NFL, I'm going to rapid fire this to you. And I want your first inclination on all of these teams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go AFC, and I'm going to go NFC. I'm going to give you the first and second place team in all four of the conferences or the divisions, and you tell me who wins the division.
Love it.
I'm going to write these down. We're going to evaluate them again. So I think we're basically right at a third of the way through the season. So we'll do it again 2/3 through the way, and then we'll see at the end who's right. I'll give you my picks too as we're going through.
Okay, I'm going to have Clax, our guy who helps us out with these and edits these down. If I get these wrong, we're going to edit those out, and I'll just say, you can write down whatever you want, but I'll just say I never said these things.
You'll just be like, no, I'll have like a voiceover going back in time.
Exactly.
I didn't say that.
I didn't say that. Right.
Fake news. Oh, fuck. I cannot wait, by the way. 2 weeks from yesterday. So 2 weeks from today is going to be either like the best day of my life or a terrible day. But either way, I can't see any more of these political ads.
Yes, just make it end. Even though it's not going to end on election day this year, because there's going to be lawsuits if a certain person loses well into January. But just make it end, please.
It has to stop. All right, so AFC first. We're going to go East, North, South, and West. I'm going to give you the top two teams. I don't think the third and fourth team in any of these conferences are going to win, or divisions. So first and second.
So I'm just saying who's going to win here?
Yep. AFC East. Buffalo's in first. Miami's in second.
Yeah, I mean, Miami, I don't think they have time to get back into shape and pass Buffalo. They get Tua back this week, but Buffalo, the trade with Amari Cooper, they're just going to be too tough.
Did you see that play last week where Cooper was in the slot and he looked over to the X receiver and had no idea what the play was, and the receiver drew on his hand what to do?
Really?
And then Amari caught a touchdown pass.
That's awesome. It's so schoolyard.
Oh, I love it. And then did you see Tua at his press conference this week say he's not going to wear a Guardian cap?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
We talked about that earlier. That Guardian cap thing is just something the NFL can throw out there to show that they're trying to do something, but it studies have shown it makes basically no difference. I mean,
if I had any chance to not get a concussion if I'm Tua, I'm going to take it because
you're right. There's no good reason not to wear it.
I mean, I think he's probably. I thought the next one, which was this last one this year, would be when they said you can't play anymore. Like you're gonna die. But so if I had, this problem getting concussed all the time, I would do anything in my power to have that not happen.
Sure.
I mean, is it an ego thing? Is it a vanity thing?
It's vanity, man. It's got to be, right? They do look goofy. I guess that's the only thing. But again, also, it doesn't mean anything because they don't work.
Sure.
If you can put a helmet around the inside of your skull then that might work. But I don't think we're there yet.
Probably not. Maybe Elon will get us there one day.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow you on Buffalo there in the East, I think. I think it's theirs to lose, and I don't think they're going to lose it.
The Amari Cooper edition was huge.
Oh, definitely. I mean, imagine if like a team like, I don't know, the Cowboys who need receiving help had a guy like Amari Cooper.
Yeah, right? They could trade for him, maybe give up a 6-rounder or something.
That'd be smart. We should do that.
We should.
AFC North. Baltimore in first, Pitt in second.
Dude, how good does Baltimore look right now? Jesus.
Unstoppable. And if you watched any of the game on Monday with Pitt, Russell Wilson in the first quarter and a half looked like dog shit, and then turned it around and actually didn't look bad.
Yeah. I mean, he looked better than Justin Field. Tomlin made the right call. And I love Pittsburgh. I love what they do there. I think Tomlin's always one of the better coaches in the NFL. But, dude, Baltimore, we're not just talking about a good team for this year. We're talking about something that could be super special. Lamar and Henry are, I don't know how you stop it.
Imagine if the Cowboys got someone like Henry also.
Yeah, they should, like maybe sign him as a free agent instead of signing Trey Lance and taking up the same cap space.
Could you imagine?
Oh, I don't think he's a good fit here, though. That's what I'm hearing from the GM.
The owner's also saying that, too.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? Isn't that coincidental?
Gosh, he got roasted this week. I love it so much.
We're going to get into that later.
We will. AFC South. Houston, Indy.
Indy. What is Indy doing up there?
They're in second place, man.
Yeah, you don't make the standings, do you?
Don't.
Houston by default.
No,
Houston's good. Stroud has obviously not been as good this year, but Joe Mixon has been a godsend for them, and that defense is tough, but something's not quite right there. They need Nico back. Nico Collins.
Is he out for the season or just for a few weeks?
No, they put him on IR. Hamstring, I think. No, he'll be back.
Did you see Godwin's injury? His ankle was turned the wrong way.
Oh, I did see that. It's crazy. It's like your ankle when you fell in the pool.
Fuck you. That hurts so bad.
It happened.
I still don't understand. Again, never complain about more football. So I can't understand why I've got a Sunday morning game that kicks off here at 7:30, and then I've got 2 Monday night games. This is the third time this year we've had 2 Monday night games.
I think that's probably profitable for the NFL, though, don't you?
No, because the Chargers game was only on ESPN Plus, and they didn't even release the ratings because they were so low, apparently.
That's probably profitable for them, too, though, because ESPN is paying them to put this on this little shit app that nobody has.
Oh, it's probably profitable for the NFL, but not for ESPN. It's just stupid.
We know what it's all about, right? It's all about money, and all those things are profitable. They get a whole new TV window at 8:30 in the morning, and people are watching. Sure. Yeah.
And then the West, Kansas City and Denver.
Yeah. What the hell's going on with Mahomes? He's like middle of the pack in quarterback rating.
He's like
not throwing the ball
this year.
Yeah.
They're 6-0.
Yeah. Yeah, which is kind of what they did last year too. They were kind of middling all year and then took off the playoffs. It's going to come back to catch them. It'll catch up with them.
I think they win the division though. But yes. I don't know how far they go in the playoffs, especially with Baltimore and Buffalo there. I think it's going to be tough, but I'm sure at some point Mahomes will snap out of it. And they just traded for Hopkins.
Yeah.
Right. So, they got Worthy and Hopkins, and Kelsey's had a down year, but at any given week he can go for 11 and 130 and 2 scores. So, we'll see.
Denver doesn't have much. They have a great defense. I mean, Nix is learning as he goes, but he's not ready yet. So I don't think Denver's any threat to KC.
I agree. So I'm going to go. So we have the same picks in the AFC.
Oh, yeah. Right. Geniuses.
Duh. All right. NFC East. Washington, surprise in first. Phillies in second. And I'll give you the third just for fun. It's the Cowboys.
Yeah, Cowboys win it. The division, obviously. No.
I've got a future on them to win the East. It's not going to pay out.
This is a really tough one, isn't it? Because Eagles got their receivers back. They do look much better. Their defense is fine. Better than last year, for sure. But the Jaden Daniels factor, I don't know what to make of that.
He looks good. I think he's been the best rookie this year by far, clearly.
Yeah, he's setting like all-time records. I know he went out hurt last week, and I don't think he's going to play this week.
He's the first ever quarterback over a 7-game stretch to have 200-plus passing yards and 50-plus rushing yards in every game.
Yeah, he doesn't look overwhelmed at all. He can do it all. He's like it was at LSU, you know. A lot of times players come in from college, can't do the things they did in college. This kid is actually absolutely doing things he does in college.
Yeah, because you got
like a beanpole. He's already been hurt, so you got to worry about that.
You got linebackers who are 60 pounds heavier than you who can run faster than you, which wasn't a thing in college.
Right. Give me Philly to come back and take the division.
I said the same thing. I'm going Philadelphia too.
Mm-hmm.
In the North, we've got Detroit and then Minnesota.
You gotta include the entire North in this. It's the best division we've seen in a long time.
They are incredible this year.
Yeah. So you said Detroit and Minnesota. You also have the Bears with 2 losses.
And the Packers.
And the freaking Packers, who are one of the scariest teams in the league. So this is a really interesting pick. I'll say Detroit. I'm
going to go Minnesota. I think they're building something there.
Yeah.
I think Detroit had lightning in a bottle last year. I'm a big Dan Campbell guy, but give me Minnesota this year. What the hell?
You could easily go Green Bay too.
Oh, definitely. I don't know if the Bears are there yet. I think they're going to get there if Caleb keeps progressing, but give me Minnesota. Minnesota should have won last week. They didn't, of course, but I think they're playing lights out on offense this year.
Let me just say this. I think you could say any of those 4 teams would win any of the other NFC divisions. Could. Maybe take Chicago out. But the other 3 teams, I think, would win any of the other NFC divisions. Yeah?
I think you're right.
Isn't that crazy?
For a division that's been that bad for that long, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, the South is Atlanta in first and Tampa in second.
Yeah, give me Atlanta. Those wide receiver injuries in Tampa, I think, is going to just derail everything.
Yeah, I like Baker. I think he's doing a good job this year, but they can't get through those injuries, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. You got Evans, old guy with a hamstring. You got Godwin out for the year. That was their team, those 3. Atlanta's, they got Cousins. They got a guy that's a steadying force there, and you got Bijan who's starting to come around, and they got some weapons. They got some weapons on offense.
They got to keep using Bijan. Bijan, he's so good.
Yeah. Did you see some of those cuts last week?
Oh, my gosh.
Nobody's like that in the NFL.
That dude's got it going on. He's good. And then in the West, Seattle's in first. Arizona's in second. And I'll mention San Francisco real quick just to say that the Ayuk injury was terrible and looked disgusting. And his knee just basically exploded, which is never fun. So Seattle, Arizona, 1-2.
Definitely Seattle.
Yeah,
not that they're a great team.
The conference is bad, though, for the first time in a while.
The conference is bad.
Our division. I keep saying conference when I mean division.
Conference is pretty bad, but yeah.
Conference is very bad. But yeah, I think they're the best team in the division this year. So we've got 7 of 8 picks are exactly the same.
All right.
So this will go very well. I'm sure.
All right. It's all on the North. Who will be the king of the North?
Jon Snow.
Uh-huh.
All right, so there's our picks for each division winner this year. We'll revisit that again in a few weeks, and then we'll see how we do at the end of the year and see if we get any of them right. I'm sure we'll probably get most of them correct because it's probably how it's going to go, but we'll see. So I know one of maybe the last thing we've got tonight, we talked about it a little bit. When I say previously, I mean about our fandom and things like that. And we talked about Jerry Jones a little bit. And it seems like for the diehards and for the fans who follow the team, the Cowboys pretty closely, we've all had a problem with Jerry for a long time because of his ego. He can't get out of his own way. He has to do things his way. And we just don't like it that much and think he needs a football guy there, like a Jimmy Johnson or a Bill Parcells. But it seems in the last week or two that the fans have, for the first time, sort of joined together collectively and are just ripping on him in public. So much so that he went on a radio station that I think he pays to go on. They asked him a question about, what was the question? Something about...
It was, what were they talking about?
I forget, but it really pissed Jerry off. Oh, about talking about his how he hasn't won anything in 30 years. And basically, they were like, you haven't done anything. And he got mad because they were talking about his losses as opposed to what he's done well over the last 25 to 30 years. Mm-hmm. And then more or less like threaten their jobs.
Yeah. He seems to be losing it some too, but yeah, for the first, I mean, just, like on The Athletic, I like The Athletic. I mean, it's not as great as it used to be, but the comment sections there used to be a lot more just general cowboy talk, but I swear every single comment now is, fuck this, it's always going to be like this with Jerry, nothing's ever going to change, this cynical, it's never going to get any better, which is all true, but... And on radio stations, you're hearing the same things. It does feel different. It does seem like more and more people are reaching their breaking point, which is kind of awesome. And then ESPN had an article today where they went and talked to lots of former Cowboys that were playing in other locations now. Generally, those players aren't going to say a whole lot, but they're all coming out and talking about what a circus it is there and how they couldn't believe it when they walked into a different franchise, and how it's all just X's and O's and focusing on football. So it's not that it's going to affect Jerry at all. Like, those corporate suites are sold, and it's being at a Cowboys game for a lot of people is just see and be seen and an event. So it's not going to hit his pocketbook at all, but like, people talk about, let's do this big fan revolt and nobody went to the game and nobody bought their material, but that's not going to happen. But
yeah, I hate him. And I just bought a brand new quarter zip Cowboys pullover.
Yeah. You're the problem, Zane.
I know, but that's the thing though. Everyone says, let's have a revolt and not buy anything, not go to games. That stadium's going to be sold out every single weekend there's a game there.
Until the end of time.
Yes.
Yes, so he's never going to feel it, but it is interesting. It does feel like there's growing momentum more than ever before amongst the diehards of saying, like, somebody called in the ticket yesterday, and his point was basically, I like to see the Cowboys win, but now I love to see them lose. And that's a fan. That's a longtime fan saying that sort of thing. So you start seeing that sort of opinion more and more. I did have a question for you. So
yeah,
we talked about our fandom before, and I've always believed, and you have too, that you pick a school and you stick through them thick and thin. That's a big part of being a fan. But is there a breaking point even for you? Have you considered like trying to just become a Denver Broncos fan?
I almost thought about buying a Broncos shirt the other day just to have one, just because we're in the area. I think because I've been a fan since I was a kid, my entire life, and you've had this with UT, for example. I mean, you had a bad 15 or 20 years there.
Yeah.
I mean, you never thought about switching to a different team.
But
so
it's
I
different.
think it is different because, I mean, that's the thing. I don't know.
It feels hopeless.
I don't think I can switch. So I think I can certainly, and like I said previously, I grew up my AFC team because of like Elway and Terrell Davis and those guys. I always liked the Broncos. And then we moved here and Russell Wilson was a quarterback and I just couldn't get behind him because he's the weirdest fucking guy in the NFL. I don't think I can actually switch. Like, I'll never not be a Cowboys fan. I might find myself rooting for the Broncos more, especially if they get better, which I know sounds like fair weather and bandwagon and all the things that diehards hate. The Cowboys are always going to be number one. That's never going to change for me. It should, because it's like I'm like in an abusive relationship, I'm the wife who gets beat every day by the husband and you just can't leave.
Yeah, and he says, it's going to be better from here on out, baby. I'm gonna be better. I'm
gonna stop drinking. I'm gonna stop hitting you. I'm gonna
love you, baby.
Yeah, but so I definitely should get out of this relationship. I don't see myself ever actually doing it, and it's like with the Rangers. I moved here. I'm not a Rockies fan. I go to the games whenever we can, just because it's baseball and it's a cool stadium and it's right in downtown. As soon as you give up on the Rangers, they win the damn World Series last year.
But again, it's a different situation. There should be an exception for when your owner has put the franchise in a position where there's really no hope. And I don't think there's any hope when Jerry dies, because Steven's the one running the cap and doing all these ridiculous ploys trying to win contract negotiations against CeeDee Lamb and Dak. So it's not going to get any better. And then Spalding's going to take over the team.
Let's end it here with the question.
Yeah.
Do you think when Jerry finally either has a stroke or just can't work anymore or, dies and Steven takes over the team and he's in charge, do you think he hires a GM?
I don't know. I really don't.
I don't either. I want to say yes, but the more I think about it, I think he's just going to sort of do what his dad did.
Yeah. Like I said, the fact that he's trying to win negotiations in the NFL when that's not how any of this works makes me really worry that he has a self-awareness to turn the team over to somebody. Because like you know how it works. There's slots. There's certain players and there's slots and there's a number and you get to that number. You're not winning contract negotiations. It's not how it works in the NFL. So I really don't know. Maybe he does. We don't know enough about Steven, I guess, to make that call.
Yeah, I hope he does, but I'm not convinced he will. So we're probably going to die before we see another championship in Dallas.
I hope so. I'm tired. I want to die just because of the political campaigns, the ads.
2 weeks. 2 weeks, Steve.
2 weeks. 2 weeks, brother, and then we're free, and everything will be fine. There won't be any more partisanship, and it'll be kumbaya all across the country. You heard it here first.
All right, so let's call it an episode. I've got nothing else to talk about. We've gone for about an hour now, so we're good. As always, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're listening to. And we'll be back next week.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Peace.